understand. As the time is short, we will now quickly move on to the next speaker. Our next second speaker for the day is Mr. Shekhar Srivastava. He has done his MSc in physics from Banaras University and then joined SBI as a probationary officer in 1983. During his 26 plus years of career in the bank, he has worked in all over the country, held positions including branch manager, regional manager, and in business, credit performance and monitoring, customer service, and audit departments of SBI. Currently, Mr. Srivastav is heading the Circle Audit Office of SBI at Guwahati, which controls the audit functions of the entire 7 Northeast states of the country. I welcome you, sir. And I would now request you to kindly share your thoughts on the topic. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Rohit. I hope I am visible and audible both. Yeah. So first of all, I thank the Royal Global University, Global Vice Chancellor, Professor S.P. Singh, Professor Manoj Jain, and all the organizers who have given this opportunity to speak on the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on banking ecosystem in India. My fellow speaker, Professor Ramesh, has aptly, succinctly dwelt upon all the aspects. And I would like to take up the granular details, what granular impacts will be there on the banking ecosystem, and what is the way forward, how the emerging situation out of COVID pandemic will be dealt with. So here, like VC Professor Singh, first of all, it is good to that you have also worked in Chhattisgarh. That is a nice place to work. I was there for full 3 years. A very good place with good connectivity, simple people, easy to work place. So good. And then again, Professor Singh, you mentioned there will be several challenges. So what is the way forward? Like you mentioned in case of ATMs. COVID pandemic, all of us know it spreads by touch or by close contact. So this close contact or touch has to be avoided at all costs. So you mentioned one example of ATM. ATM, we have to touch the buttons. So what is the solution which is looked at, and how this problem can be overcome? So here I would like to share with you, now this facial recognition has come in, especially my colleagues here who will be using the Apple iPhone. They must have seen that the unlock of the phone can be done through facial recognition. Similarly, this ATMs now have started on a experimental basis coming with facial recognition. So once the person stands before the ATM, pinhole camera is there, so facial recognition will enable the payment. And then the second check is your voice recognition also. ATM will be a speaking ATM, and it will ask how much you want. Then you have to communicate, and your voice will be recognized. Based on that, the money will be dispensed. So technology is the solution everywhere. So technology will provide the way through what I have told. And then I would like to take up the specific granular points on which this webinar is focusing, like what are the opportunities, challenges, and threats faced by the banking sector arising out of this pandemic, and what is the way forward. So now the challenges are manifold. Banking is under stress because of the pandemic. The first challenge is to keep the distribution channels open. You know, bank has a distribution channel. It may be a brick and mortar physical distribution channel, or there can be alternate channel like an ATM or internet banking or mobile banking. So the first challenge that comes with this pandemic is how to keep the distribution channel open. Like in case of say branch, brick and mortar branch, you have to follow the social distancing norms. So you cannot allow a rush of customers like your Manrega beneficiaries, they throng the branch. So that kind of crowd is now not to be allowed. So that is the first challenge. Now among the staff also, You cannot make staff sit on the counters next to each other. So this is another challenge. How your distribution channel, that is a physical branch, how it will work when you cannot allow many staff to sit close to each other. So these are the challenges. And in regard to keeping the channels open, ATM is again a channel which is an alternate channel. So Professor Singh, Vice Chancellor, mentioned how to operate the ATM, and touch itself makes you infect with the disease. So solution also what I mentioned can be there. Now first challenge, as I said, was to keep the distribution channels open. After that, the second challenge will come to manage the revenues of the bank. You know, bank is a commercial organization and it has to live on the revenues. It has to have some profits to run itself, to be viable. So to be viable and earn profit, the revenues have to be continuous. So how the revenue will be earned during this pandemic? Because you know the loan offtake is not there, interest on loans is going down. Moreover, RBI has given the regulatory forbearance as the payments of term loans not required initially for 3 months, then another 3 months, and maybe it will be further extended. So the income stream is drying up. So how to maintain the revenue stream of the bank? That is the next challenge. And the rates are going down also. We have seen the repo rate, many of the loans of the bank like housing loan, car loan, these are repo rate linked loans. So repo rate has been coming down. The RBI, as a measure of pushing the credit into the system, has been bringing down the repo rate. Now currently it is 4%. Now the loans of the bank are either repo rate linked or MCLR linked. Hello? Hello? Yeah, Rohit, am I audible? I am not able to see anything here.
Sir, you are audible. It is
Okay.
a small technical glitch. Just hold on a second. Hold on a minute, sir.
You can see me also?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Now it is
Yes.
coming on the
Yes.
Thank you,
All right.
Rohit.
Yes.
Yeah, so going forward, the second challenge I was mentioning after the first one of keeping the channels open is of maintaining the revenue stream. Now I was saying that repo rate has been coming down, so banks' revenue is impacted. So how to show the profits, how to show the revenue, and how to be viable in the long run, that is another challenge. And the third challenge is to meet the customer expectations. Now I mentioned that like in case of say Manrega beneficiaries, all of them come to the branch together as soon as the account is created with the proceeds of their labor. And then they want to draw also the same day. But we are saying you have to maintain the social distance. So how their expectations can be met? That is the third challenge. And now again we say that the solution is to provide alternate ways to bank. Now alternate ways can be through technology, through remote logins. Then the fourth challenge comes. That challenge is of making the transaction secure. How in a remote transaction environment, bank can make the transaction secure. That is the fourth very big challenge before the banks. And solutions also I've been mentioning in between. So solution, first of all banks have to have a business continuity plan. How in case of a particular event, the solution has to come, like channel has to be kept open, or revenue has to be generated, or customer expectations have to be met, or the transactions have to be made secure. So for all these, there has to be a detailed business continuity plan which has to be shared among all the bank's personnel, and everybody has to know how if a particular event happens, the action has to be taken to continue the bank's operations, because bank is the lifeline of the economy. As my fellow speaker Professor Ramesh also said, economy cannot be thought of without bank. So the business continuity plan for the bank has to be in place. That is the first requirement. in the COVID pandemic situation. Now, uh, generally, like Professor Singh mentioned in his inaugural address, that when he went to branch PNB, he was mentioning. So about half an hour was taken, and then it came out that the person is not handling the work. Now, that shows that empathy to the customer has to be in place. So that has to be developed in the banking ecosystem. Empathy has to develop to make the customers as a valuable constituent of the bank and provide business to the bank. So empathy has to be there. And the third point is the loan stress. Okay. So loan stress will be there. Of course, as I said, RBI has provided regulatory forbearance for repayment of the term loans for 6 months now, up to 31st August, and it can be extended also. But maybe because the interest will continue to apply, many of these loans will face the heat of the large interest applications and may slip to NPA. So that leads to loan stress and how that has to be managed. So that planning has to be in place, how to manage the loan stress. So here I would also like to share that banks have been requesting now the government and the RBI to change the IRAC norms, income recognition and asset classification norms, from a 90-day norm to 180-day norm. So that will give some respite from the stress in the loans. So that is another solution. Now the revenue stream, I said, is drying up. So how to maintain the profit? The one of the choice is to trim down the cost. So bank has to trim down the cost wherever it is possible. The costs have to be trimmed down, and the revenue outlook has to be reset. From having a very ambitious revenue outlook, we have to have a realistic revenue outlook. Then only the encouraging way forward will emerge. The government has done several things. You know, this Atmanirbhar package has come in, which was announced by the Prime Minister himself on the national TV. So Atmanirbhar package provides for a 20 lakh crores package, which is about the size of 10% of the country's GDP. And many measures have been built in there, which will provide funds in the hands of the people of the country and lead to sustenance, lead to economic activity, lead to revenue generation and overall economic growth in the country. Some of the measures I would like to share here. Like, you know, banks can lend by way of having liquidity with them. So one measure which the government has provided in the Atmanirbhar package is this marginal standing facility of RBI, in which the banks borrow from the RBI overnight funds as a percentage of the SLR of the bank. So earlier it was 2% limit, borrower limit. Now it is raised to 3%. So banks can borrow more funds from RBI and thereby can disburse also, lend also, provide also more funds. So this is one way in which the Atmanirbhar package pushes the funds into the economy. Then this states also borrow funds for their economic activities, for their developmental activities. So they had a borrowing limit of 3% of the gross state domestic product. So that limit has now been raised to the 5%. So states can borrow more now, exactly 2 percentage points more, and thereby they can spend more, like say in developmental projects, like say in Manrega, physical constructions in the villages. More people can be employed that, and more wages can be dispersed. So this is how government has envisaged that it will make the economy move forward. And moreover, what government has done, the number of days employment that was provided under Manrega, that has also been raised. almost doubled. So that is done. Then many more things are done. Cash reserve ratio, which forces banks to place a certain percentage of their net demand and time liabilities with the RBI, that has been brought down. Currently, it has been brought down to 3% of net DTL of the bank only, and that has released a fund in the economy to the tune of 1,37,000 crores. Then RBI has provided refinance also to the lending institutions of SIDBI, NABARD and NHB. It has been provided to the tune of 50,000 crores, and once these funds are given to these refinancing organizations, these will on lend to the banks, and bank will turn on lend it to the beneficiaries, and this will lead to economic activity generation and income generation. So this is the measures. These are the measures taken by the government under the Atmanirbhar package. And now, once the economic activity has dried up due to the COVID, and the banks are also reluctant to lend because there is a fear of NPA. If they lend, the amount will go NPA, and it will be a loss to the bank. So for that, government has also come out with collateral-free automatic loans to MSMEs, and for these, government is giving 100% credit guarantee cover to the banks and NBFCs on the principal and interest. So this amounts to a total figure of 3 lakh crores. So this 3 lakh crores of collateral-free loans, which are given only on the guarantee of the government or the credit guarantee cover of the government, these are available. So these are the measures taken under the Atmanirbhar package. Now, in the short term, the impact will be negative, of course. The short-term impact, the challenge, the threat faced by the bank due to COVID, short-term, it has to be negative only. Like NPA may mount, credit offtake will not be there. The bank also can go into losses, and capital will be affected. Capital affected means the further capacity to lend will reduce. All these things will happen. But on the brighter side, what is happening, if we have seen the figures of deposits of the bank in April and May, the deposits have increased by leaps and bounds. This is because of the pandemic only. What happens? The ultra high net worth individuals who are flush with the funds, they don't have the avenues to spend. You cannot travel. You cannot go to 5-star hotels to stay. Hotels were closed till 8th of June. Then the archaeological sites are closed. Tourist places are closed. Many countries have a quarantine of say 14 to 21 days. So people will not go. Who would like to be quarantined there? So the avenue to spend is totally not there, and because of which the funds of the ultra high net worth people are locked in the banks, and thereby the deposits of the banks have increased during these 2 months of April and May. This has been observed. So now in the short term, I said the credit will not offtake, and there will be some stress in the bank's balance sheet so far as asset liability match is also there. There will be some gaps. However, we have read in the newspapers that China was the epicenter of the pandemic, and many of the MNCs have planned to shift from China. And chances are, if in India there is a creation of enablers, the MNCs may come over to India. Now, once this happens, I look at it in a 1-year time frame. In a say 1 year plus time frame, some MNCs which exit China may land in India, and once they start their facilities here, economic activity in the country by virtue of the start of those facilities will pick up, and every MNC has ancillary units also. So ancillary units will be mostly domestic. Those will take the credit, and those will generate employment. So after 1 year, I see the position improving. That should happen, and it is almost the prediction given by all agencies also. Like World Bank has also said in 1 year frame, 2021 the GDP will contract, but after that there will be a huge growth, which will be part due to low base effect also, which my fellow speaker has also mentioned. So these things are going to happen. So,
Sir, Mr. Srivastav, sir.
yeah.
Sir, sorry to disturb you. Actually, we are already over time, so I would request you to
Yeah.
kindly wind up in the next few minutes, sir.
But you cannot blame me for that. I have not
No, I am not blaming, sir. Sorry, sir. But yes, if possible, sir.
I will take another 5 minutes. Don't worry. Right. Okay. So now some facts have come to forefront. What is the utility of these schemes? Like Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana is one scheme which was pushed very vigorously, and this scheme has come in very useful. This is kind of enabling environment in the pandemic situation for the banks, because when the government decided to disburse relief to the beneficiaries, like say women Jan Dhan account holders, these accounts came in very handy, and direct disbursal of relief could be made. So this encourages the people, residual people, little bit of residual people who may have been left out of Jan Dhan accounts. They will also be encouraged to open Jan Dhan accounts, and the government will also now take up with full vigor coverage of 100% people in the Jan Dhan accounts. So that will be achieved. And the second good thing which has resulted from pandemic is the work culture. Work culture, now you know this WFH, work from home, is the buzzword now. Now every organization, everywhere, this work from home has come in. Okay. So work from home means the staff doesn't have to come physically. So he is insulated from touch and contact of a COVID infected person. So this work from home is the buzzword now, and it will be integral part of bank's work culture going forward. In the post lockdown, the bank's employees have also been given option to work from home, and they have been coming to bank on alternate days. One day 50% people will be coming, and the next day the remaining 50% will come. So that way this work from home has been implemented. And one problem that comes is like regulatory and compliance functions, how work from home will work. So here I am from audit, which is again a part of regulatory function and compliance function only. So audit we have in SBI undertaken home connectivity. There is a VPN secure connectivity. So what we are doing to the rank of DGM and above, secure VPN connectivity is being given, and they will be able to access from home and work. Technological development is coming, and then employees in non-customer facing roles. Definitely for them, work from home can be 100% done. However, employees working in branches, front-end control operations, and IT department of the bank, they will require to come to the bank, and physical presence still is required. For ensuring safety and security of transactions, once employees continue working from home, departments have to ensure against the cyber crimes. Like this business, this Jamtara people have started. What they do, they call the bank's depositors. Hello, you want this deferment of your loan installment? You want relief from repayment? So then they will ask for the credentials and commit the fraud. So this is another aspect which has to be guarded against. Now, going quickly forward and trying to finish my address in the next 2-3 minutes. What more can be done to meet the challenges of the COVID environment? So here I would say artificial intelligence is another tool which will help the banks in overcoming the pandemic. You know, this artificial intelligence gives the prediction of future outcomes and trends based on the past data. So using it, we can predict the future scenarios by analyzing the past behavior, and it will help the banks predict the future outcomes and trends, and accordingly bank can plan the activities. So this can also help the bank to identify the fraud prone areas once this work from home is implemented, how this can be taken care of. So artificial intelligence is another tool which will be of great help in this pandemic situation. Artificial intelligence will not only empower bank by automating its knowledge workforce, it will also make the whole process of automation intelligent enough to do away with the cyber crimes and competition from financial technology players who have been taking over a lot of banking business of late. So that way, artificial intelligence will help the bank. It will be integral to banks' processes and operations going forward, and will keep evolving and innovating with time without considerable manual interventions. It will enable the banks to leverage human and machine capabilities optimally to drive the operational and cost efficiencies and deliver personalized service. All this will be enabled. Then, concluding my speech, I saw somebody raised a question regarding the security of the fixed deposits. So I would just like to touch on the point that there is a deposit insurance and a credit guarantee corporation which insures the deposits people make in the banks. So earlier the maximum limit for insuring the deposit was 1 lakh. Last time government has raised this limit to 5 lakhs. So that security is now provided to the fixed deposits. So up to 5 lakhs, whatever your deposits are there in the banks, even in the pandemic situation, even if bank's revenue stream is affected, your deposit up to 5 lakhs in the bank is 100% fully secure. So we can rest assured about that. So I think the major points I wanted to cover, I've already covered, and time we have already overstepped. So I will conclude with this. Thanks a lot once again.
Thank you so much, sir, for your address about the challenges which banks are facing and how are they handling it. Now, as the time is already over, but I will request my participants to please bear with us for a few more minutes for the Q&A round. The first question that we have is, we have already addressed many questions from the queue, and there are some other questions unrelated as well. But the first related question is, the interest rates are going down, but inflation is still up. So will it come down? So any of the speakers would like to?
Can I answer?
Please.
Well, dear students, you are aware, that there are two types of interest rates, nominal and real. You are also aware that the real interest rate is nothing but the difference between the nominal interest rate and the rate of inflation. Ideally, in an economy, the monetary authority would ensure that the real interest rate enjoyed by the savers is in positive territory. That means if the nominal interest rate offered by State Bank of India is 6%, inflation should be around 4%, so that the real gain to the savers is at least 2%. As of now, inflation is not a matter to be worried. Interest rates are falling down. Yes, you are very right. And interest rates have been brought down intentionally to kickstart the economy. So as of now, interest rates are falling fine, but still inflation has not picked up. Savers are still getting real positive interest rate so that the saving ratio in the economy will be maintained. And recent one, if you visit the RBI website, you will get information about households' financial savings. And that proves still we are the beneficiaries or gainers if we think we are depositors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. The next question is, the asset liability management is becoming a big problem, particularly in public sector banks. So what is the strategy do you think that will solve this problem? And how can we go ahead with this?
To whom the question is addressed?
Yeah, I can answer. See, Rohit, this mismatch will be there temporarily for a 1 year time frame because the offtake will take some time to come. So it is a short-term problem. So we can live with it. It is not a big, what I can say, a big disruption. It can be there for a year or so. Then it will be normal back to.
Okay, sir. The one last question we will have is again from Manojan sir only. So he is asking that fintech firms, they are growing very fast and they are taking away major business from the banks. So what strategy should banks have, particularly public sector banks, to overcome this challenge from the fintech firms?
Who should answer?
Sir, you may answer, sir.
Fintech companies are not really taking business from banks, first of all. They are trying to support the banking system to reach out to probably millions of customers. Say, for example, bank would like to lend money to individuals and to create millions of loan accounts. Now, for example, credit information. We have only CIBIL. Now, fintech companies can do big data and give support to banks to lend money to more number of people. So therefore, I see complementarity between the role played by the banking system and the fintech companies. Reserve Bank also encourages fintech companies to innovate and help the financial intermediaries. Therefore, Reserve Bank has created a framework called Regulatory Sandbox. This regulatory sandbox will permit the fintech companies to access the information, data, and do experiments under a very tight regulated environment. Data will not escape and it will be under the supervision of the Reserve Bank of India. So therefore, fintech companies in the long run are going to play a sort of complementary supporting role to the banking system. They can never replace banking system. If at all, if somebody talks of P2P or some sort of platform, wherein somebody can lend somebody, yes, that is the matter that regulators should worry about. Thank you.
Rohit, sir, you just asked the esteemed speaker if they have a few more minutes, say 10 more minutes. So there are many questions being raised. You can continue for 10 more minutes. Speakers, Shrivastava ji, is it okay for you for another 10 minutes?
Yeah, no problem. Today is a bank holiday, so I'm fine.
Okay, and Professor Ramesh, is it okay for you?
Yes, sir. Yes, very much.
So,
yes.
So Rohit, I would request then you please carry on for another 15 minutes, 10 minutes, and take all the questions. There are very, very good questions there on the chat box.
Excellent questions. I'm really thrilled to see
yes.
the questions, which are very pointed and very relevant. I must appreciate your teachers for having created a pool of such talented MBA students.
Thank you so much, sir. So therefore, I got this opportunity to request you for this. And this is going on very interesting. So can Rohit, please continue.
Yes, sir. Sure. So one related question is about the impact of this pandemic or on the stock market. So what we are seeing is that the stock market earlier it went down, now it is going up. Before this pandemic also, we saw that the stock market was going up, spite of the recession and the recessionary news being coming in. So what do you think? Why this is happening and what future is holding for the stock market?
You can ask the speaker who should respond. Accordingly, we will respond.
Yes, sir. So maybe Srivastava, sir, if you can respond, sir.
Yeah, see, the stock market, some fluctuation has been there, no doubt. It has come down drastically initially, and then it has stabilized, and then it has started moving upwards also. So definitely, pandemic will affect the market. The valuations of the companies will go down, and the share prices will also come down. That is bound to happen. But on the other hand, you will also see that in this pandemic, Reliance Industries Limited came out with a rights issue, which was a very large issue, and it was fully subsidized. So people have faith still in the good companies, and companies are able to raise the funds. So uh, any inherent weakness I don't see. It is only a temporary phenomenon. And once we overcome the pandemic period, which may be by way of, say, development of a vaccine or so, stock market will be back to normal. So there is no major issue, I would say. We need not worry about the stock market too much on account of this.
True.
Uh,
Right.
One more question. I would like Dr. Ramesh to kindly address it. The question is that
Sure. Sure. The earlier question or new question?
no, new question I am saying, sir.
Okay.
You stressed about that the NPAs of the banks might be in might be in a little bit stress and they might increase because of the current pandemic. So, would the banks require another round of capital infusion from the government? What
Answer
is your
is
view on that?
answer is definitely yes. Because earlier also banks received capital and some banks considered it as growth capital. But now that capital will go towards provisioning for NPAs. And NPAs are going to go up undoubtedly. And therefore, answer to your question is definitely yes. Capital must be provided by the government in the case of public sector banks. And the private sector banks, I don't know, market may be able to give a good amount of capital to private sector.
Sir, next question is a little bit general in nature, not specific to banking, but if you can address it, would be very helpful, sir. The question is like this, that government has announced the host of measures for MSME. But what about those businesses which are smaller than MSMEs and which have also incurred huge amount of losses? So what do you think and what has the government done till now and what do you think will happen uh, after this lockdown ends and how will banks cope up with the losses so generated by the smaller businesses? So it's in a way related also to the banking. So, Shekhar sir, if you can kindly answer.
Yeah, Rohit, actually your voice was breaking. I could not fully listen to
I'll repeat the question, sir. I'll repeat the question as it is. So the question is like this: that uh, what kind of aids would be or have been provided to businesses which are smaller than MSMEs, and if they are not provided with such and they incur losses, which in turn may also some of the losses may be transferred to the banks as well. So how will the banks cope up with those losses, if at all it happens?
Yeah, see,
Yes, sir.
government is giving direct funding support to such units. So that will be useful for such enterprises. And like I said, these also will be guaranteed definitely. So bank also will not be facing any problem in funding this. So I don't see any shortage of fund for such ventures. it is, I think, there in place.
Rohit? Rohit,
Yes, sir.
carry on.
Yes. All right, I'll go ahead and ask the question as well. So the question is like this: how will liquidity be affected in banks post this lockdown and COVID situation?
Who should answer?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ramesh, sir, please.
Yeah, liquidity is in abundance, frankly speaking. The Reserve Bank of India has taken several steps. One is when the repo rate is reduced, banks will be able to borrow more money at cheaper rate from Reserve Bank of India. The borrowing capacity of the banks has also been increased by Reserve Bank of India. Reserve Bank also has given refinance support to the extent of 25,000 first to NABARD and another 25,000 crores to NABARD, 15,000 crores to SIDBI, 15,000 crores to Exim Bank, and I think 10,000 crores to National Housing Bank. These are some of the unconventional measures adopted by Reserve Bank of India to pump liquidity into the system. Now you may ask me why Reserve Bank of India has pumped so much liquidity, that too at a relatively cheaper rate. For example, Exim Bank has been given 15,000 crore rupees at repo rate. Repo rate is very cheap rate. Now, if a student asks why so much liquidity has been given, basically, reason number one is to help the NBFCs. Non-banking financial companies play a very important role in our country, in our financial system. And about 17% of the total assets are controlled by non-financial banking intermediaries. Now, what non-financial or non-banking financial intermediary does is it borrows short from the market and lends long. And they run the risk of asset liability management. And asset liability mismatch results in a very awkward situation for NBFCs. Now, thanks to COVID, NBFCs have not been able to borrow money from market through maybe bonds or debentures or commercial papers. Therefore, banking system has been advised to support NBFCs subject to the condition that the paper issued by NBFC is of at least BBB rating. Similarly, National Housing Bank has been given liquidity support to support the housing finance companies. Housing finance companies. We have NBFCs which are into housing finance. And MFIs and small finance banks and regional rural banks have been getting liquidity support from NABARD. So in the banking system, liquidity is not an issue. The purpose of infusing liquidity in abundance is to help the banks to carry out their functions normally without any constraint, insofar as liquidity is concerned.
Right.
Thank you.
So Rohit, you can conclude if you want to.
And would be first
Hello.
of all convey my heartfelt thanks. Yes, sir.
तुम्हारी आवाज नहीं आ रही रोहित.
All right, sir.
Rohit, more question posted. Please get a reply.
Should we take one more question, sir?
Carry on. I have no issues.
Yes. All right, sir. So actually, one more question, if you can address speakers, it will be very great. The question is like this: in spite of strong credit appraisal system inbuilt in public sector banks, a bank may take minimum 1 to 2 months to disperse a small loan. So question I am reading, but it is not very clear. Just a moment, sir. How this big NPAs like that of Nirav Modi case with Punjab National Bank, Vijay Mallya Group, and many others. In fact, big corporates are big defaulters. So, what is the corporate governance problems in the side of lending? So that is actually
Very general.
the big lenders are defaulting more as compared to small lenders. So the question is regarding that. Where is the problem like? Srivastav sir may be taking it. Sir?
Yeah, Rohit. So here it has been observed after going through the happenings at those banks, like PNB was involved in the Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksi fraud. So after going through what transpired, it has been observed that in some, like in this particular case, there was collusion. There was collusion, and all the norms of credit appraisal disbursement given a go by. Like this fraud, Nirav Modi particular fraud was done through letter of undertaking. So letter of undertaking, if it is issued in favor of Nirav Modi, there will be a jump in the this account, your foreign currency account of the bank in regard to that firm. So that jump was never looked at critically. Okay. So had the bank people looked at the account critically, it would have been come to light very soon and it would have been stopped. So that was not done. And then the other income of the bank also increased by leaps and bounds. When you issue this non-fund based facilities like say letter of undertaking, there is a commission income on the non-fund based facility. In case of PNB, that also mounted, but nobody observed that. Nobody, even the auditors gave it a go by. None of the auditors commented on that, and it continued for about more than a year, which led to a siphoning of 11,000 crores. But had all the due systems and procedures been followed, this would have been stopped, definitely. So here in PNB case, it was a problem of collusion, definitely. And as a result, you know, CBI and all had come in and so many people are in trouble. So this was a problem of collusion. But in case of some other big advances, what happens? There are unforeseen events like bank goes ahead and the government also pushes and the promoter of the unit also pushes for disbursal of credit in anticipation of some regulatory approvals which later on are held back because of the change of government or because of some other development. Like say there is a steel plant called Electro Steel. It had a big limit from a consortium of banks. So these environmental clearance was supposed to have come. There was every indication that the environmental approval will come. But finally, after a long time, it was held back. And as a result of which the units had to stop operation and the account went into NPA. So these regulatory approvals take a long time also, and very often these are not given in the name of environment. This leads to the big loans going bad. And then the over ambition of the promoter. You know, what happens? A particular promoter, like say, he is setting up a power plant. So the proposal is for setting up of a power plant of say 100 megawatt. So the facility is given accordingly, which is commensurate to setting up of a power plant of say 100 megawatts. But along the way, the promoter becomes greedy. He feels that he will go for a say 200 megawatt plant. So he start garnering the things accordingly, and naturally he will fall short of funds. And finally, what will happen? He will go to bank again and again, and finally bank will see that this fellow has deviated, and bank will also stop disbursing, and that will lead to closing down of the unit and a bad loan on it on the bank's books. So these are some of the reasons. So here, if the promoter goes for a higher capacity than what was envisaged in the proposal, So here banks follow-up and monitoring mechanism has to be very strong. So here the loan goes bad because of proper follow-up and monitoring, I would say. Had the bank ensured that the follow-up is proper and monitoring ensures that the plant is of 100 megawatt, then the loan would not go. So this is another reason. Improper monitoring and follow-up of the proposal. The reason for the loan going bad. So these are some of the reasons, I would say.
Thank you. Very nice. Very nice.
Inflows which are happening in banks. For example, we saw recently that HDFC Bank, the People's Bank of China, had invested 1% in HDFC Bank. So, what is your take on foreign capital being coming to Indian banks? Dr. Ramesh, if you may answer, sir.
So, well, capital is capital. Banks are also companies.
True.
Only thing is, banks are the trustees of public fund. Banks play with public money, unlike a typical manufacturing company. Therefore, the Reserve Bank of India has taken already certain prudential steps. No capital comes from abroad. The voting right, controlling stake, is with Indian promoter. So therefore, when the bank receives investment from abroad, it is fine. But at the same time, bank will not be controlled by abroad, people sitting abroad. So this, the check has already been taken care, and probably, allowing capital to some extent is fine. Allowing capital to the extent of to 100% is not fine. So therefore, Reserve Bank has taken the step that the promoter with minority stake also will control the bank, and the investor will enter the bank as equity investor only to get the profit out of the investment and not to control the bank. So that is the point that I'm trying to convey. Already checks and balances are taken care, nothing to worry. And when it comes to China, you are aware, Finance Minister has made certain observations. I do agree that Chinese, investment is not a welcome thing in companies and also in particular banks.
True.
Thank you so much, sir. So, with permission from VC, sir, we can conclude, sir.
No, you should conclude. Otherwise, my esteemed speakers will be, filling up.
Yeah, they are
carry on.
Yes. Sure.
Conclude.
Sure. So I'm very thankful to the external speakers for giving their valuable time for us today and speaking on the topic. And also grateful to our chief patron, Dr. S.K. Singh, Vice Chancellor, Global University, for coming and attending this webinar and on a short notice also agreeing to speak. Thank you so much, sir. And our patrons, Professor Dr. Alak Buwagwai, sir, our Chairperson Academic, and Professor Dr. Manoj Jain, sir, our Deputy Dean and Professor of Royal School of Business, our faculty team, and all the people who have made this, organizing this event possible. And last of all, to our participants who remain patient with us for such a long time, despite overshooting the time and asking such questions. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharad.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Professor Singh. Thank you very much.
We'll see you soon.
Srivastava, sir. Enjoy.
Thank you, Ramesh sir. Thank you, Singh sir.
And, thank you, Rohit and Manoj, the two young talented professors. And best wishes to all my dear students. Thank you. So nice of you.
Thank you, Ramesh.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for igniting us.